see, I'm not really disorganized, I'm just not organized. And I like love poems because I like falling in love. I think falling in love is a good idea. And I'm always upset when people are always telling people not to fall in love. You can't fall in love with everybody, of course. I mean, we know that, you know. Have to be not necessarily discriminating, but you have to be a little careful. You just can't be going around screwing everybody. But, oh, you can't, you know. Can I tell you one other story? You can think of it. Yeah. We were invited because of NASA. I've been wanting to go into space. Some of you know me. I think it's so important. I want Virginia Tech. I want it for Virginia Tech. I want Tech to send about 10 creative writers, and I want them to send them to Antarctica. And the reason I want to go to Antarctica is the same reason I was sharing with you all, Middle Passage. It's so important that we learn to deal with silence, and that we learn to deal with finding out where we are and how to deal with it. And I went to Antarctica with she's 92 now, my 92-year-old aunt a couple of years ago. And Antarctica is a different, and I would urge any of you to go to get a chance. It's a whole different level of fish. Because the one thing that you do with Antarctica is you're quiet. You know, we have an astronaut right now who's been on the space station for just about 350 days, something like that. And mostly what he's been doing up there is dealing with silence. So what we want to know is when he comes back, is he going to be sane? This is not something but that level that none of us nobody is used to it. The people who come close to being used to that level of silence, of course, mountaineers, or we here in the area that we are. So I think that we need to do that. Send a couple of, not me, but send a couple of other teachers down there so that the creative writers can see these are the kind of dreams that I have, and this is what we're going to do. So NASA wanted to use a poem of mine, which was really wonderful, and they contacted us and said, we'd like to use this poem, may we have the poem? And my answer to almost everything is yes, and so it was like, yeah, sure, I'm happy. And I didn't know, but then a couple of weeks later, we got a note from NASA saying Dr. Giovanni didn't tell us what it would cost. And that was like, oh my God. I had no idea that I was to be paid for the poem. And so, in all fairness to everybody, and I'm not rich or anything, you can see what I do, but it was like, oh my God, they're going to pay me. Well, I didn't want money because, hell, you can get money anywhere. You stand on a corner and get money. But I thought, my goodness, you can. And I thought, wow, what I want is lunch with Dr. Gordon, who's the head of NASA. So we said the payment is lunch with Dr. Gordon. You may as well get something you can't get anyplace. And he said, well, if we're going to give you lunch, then I want my other people to do it, because he wanted to hear some of the things that I was going to share. And so that was really great. And we did. We had lunch with her. It was wonderful, just wonderful. But then we were invited to a launch. And so now we're on our way in Florida, and we're down there. And we're sitting on a bus with the owners of the New York Yankees.
Their
Who was it?
the team that is not the actual team, but
The field team?
whatever you call it.
He was an important rich man.
Yeah.
Let me just say, a rich white guy. He's sitting there, and an astronaut is sitting there. And we're here, and there's a couple other people on the bus, but it was too funny. And he wants to dominate the astronaut because he's rich and used to people listening to him. The astronaut does not want to be bothered because he's asking stupid questions. So the astronaut looks at us, and it's like, well, what do you think about astronauts? And of course, I immediately, because it's quite true, I said, I think they're sexy. Who wouldn't want to do an astronaut? Even at my age, you know. How often do you have to do an astronaut? I mean, God, yes. And so he said, oh, I want to sit with you. And so he came and sat with us. And of course, that made that guy incredibly, incredibly angry. But I'm just saying this, you know, we make life, I think sex is fun, and I think that it's time that we really quit making everybody feel so bad. And I'm mad at Clarence Thomas because, as you know, we had a 5-4 decision on same-sex marriage, and of all of the people to be on the for side, Clarence Thomas, who's married to Virginia, who is a white woman. Clarence is black, as you know, and he's married to a white woman. We're here in Virginia, And if it hadn't been for Loving versus Virginia, when Clarence married or even looked at Virginia, we would have lynched him. That would have been the end of it. Which probably would have been not the worst idea because maybe had a Supreme Court judge. That's the truth. But